Hello and welcome to the Women Fantasy Authors YouTube channel. I'm your host, Janet Hinker, and my guest today is Karen Eisenbrey. Good morning, Karen. Happy to have you.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
All right, good. I just finished reading your latest fantasy release titled A Quest for Hidden Things, which is book one in your River fantasy series. Book one, it's going to be a series. And the short tagline for that reads, a cursed village, a self-taught wizard, a secret healer, and a common enemy. What will it cost to free Deep River? So I'd like to start today by having you tell us about the town of Deep River, which actually has no river, and also what is involved with the curse.
Okay. Deep River is a tiny little remote village in the Republic of Ucard. It, once upon a time, had a river. It was founded there because the river was there. But mysteriously, about a generation ago, the river stopped flowing. So now what they have is most of the year a dry channel. And they were able to shift what they were growing and adjust how they were living to continue living in this community that they had built. But it's still called Deep River. There's no Deep River. And I named it that because I thought that would be a funny joke.
I like it. I like it. And you think about it often as you're reading the story, and when they walk out to the dry riverbed, and it reminds you throughout that, oh, this used to be a thing here. And then some of the old elders remember the river, I believe. Yeah. So now there's a reason that all of this is happening. And so tell us a little bit about just generally the curse, or what they're calling the curse on this town.
Yeah. Erie's curse is a peculiar piece of magic that prevents residents of Deep River from leaving or even thinking about leaving or wanting to leave. And it prevents anyone from the outside from visiting, especially magic users.
Okay.
But really anybody. Although, curiously, in case of an emergency, like a need for something that can only be gotten from the outside, it will let people in. But it also prevents people from thinking about it. So
Yeah.
unless they're really focused, they don't even recognize that there's anything strange going on.
It felt kind of like a brain fog in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
it's this
yeah,
just kind of, don't think about it. There's nothing to see here. That kind of
right,
thing.
right. Okay, we start the story by meeting a young sorcerer named Crane, who is teaching himself magic because he doesn't have anybody in town to be his mentor, and he's a bit of an outcast. So without giving us any spoilers, tell us a little bit about Crane and his character.
Okay. He doesn't know who his father is. Nobody knows who his father is. Which he finds out, he kind of assumes, oh, everybody must know, and it's
Oh,
some shameful secret nobody wants to tell me. But it turns out, no, nobody really knows. His mother has an inkling, but
uh,
it was she had a nice time once. and so he looks different, and people are a little suspicious. Nobody just has a baby out of nowhere. So there's something there. And then when he was 12, he began to develop magical powers, and that was even more suspicious because that's not terribly common.
so yeah,
So the other families in the community sort of look at him askance and tell their children, well, maybe don't play with him. There's something strange going on with that family.
right.
But he does have one stalwart friend who is the son of his mother's stalwart friend. So those two families are like this. And that is kind of his support through his youth up until he's ready to, okay, I really am going to be a wizard. I
Yeah.
can do this.
And I think the fact that he's an outcast and doesn't quite fit in maybe is part of the reason that he's starting to be pushed towards looking outside being in that little town. I mean, there's other things that happen which
Yeah.
we won't go
And
into, but yeah.
something about his magic shields him from the full weight of the curse. So once and it shields the people who are right next to him. So if somebody like his friend Alec or Alec's mother Sudi, if they are right near him talking, they find that, oh, they can remember that there's a curse or what it was like before.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to talk about. But he gathers enough clues that over this one day, really, everybody starts telling him stories. And that's when he finally notices, oh, yeah, I've been seeing it all along. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And decides it must have something to do with me.
Right. Okay. And yeah, and of course there's a lot more going on that we won't find out until we get farther into the story as you read and find out what all the moving parts are. Um, that brings up the subject of the evil sorcerer Ire, or at least the townspeople speak of an evil sorcerer who they blame for the river drying up. And why does Crane think he should be the one to leave Deep River and do something about this curse?
Well, he's the only magic user they have. And he's not very good.
Yes,
He is
we noticed.
still
We
really
noticed.
very much a beginner. He has been struggling to teach himself magic out of mysterious old books that the main one that he's used is missing a lot of pages or there are corners torn off, so the whole thing isn't there. But he's been trying to teach himself to use his power with, very limited success. But he's learned to do a couple of things. And one of those things is he finds instructions for crafting a wizard's staff, which is supposed
Yes.
to amplify and control his power. And he succeeds at it because it's not as difficult as some of the other things seem. It just takes a long time. So it requires patience and power. And he manages to have those. He
Right.
doesn't have much else, but he has those.
He's
And
got a
once he
step.
has that thing in his hand, he's like, okay,
He's
my town has a magical problem. I'm a magical person. I should be the one to deal with it. And he realizes that for a while, he's not even sure how long, he's been feeling kind of a call or a pull
yes.
towards somewhere outside of Deep River. And he figures out, well, that must be either it's my magic telling me where Ire is, or it's Ire trying to get me to come to him.
So
And
he
maybe I should be afraid of that, but I see it's a clue. I'm going to follow it. There's
yeah,
this thing pulling me. Okay, I'm going to let it. And I'm going to
yeah.
go find out what's at the end of it.
So he's brave, sort of. I mean, he feels drawn, and he's not exactly the most confident wizard, but he gets himself out there. When he finally manages to leave Deep River, he meets Ketty, a young woman in Misty Pass, which is in another part of the world, not kingdom, country, another
Yeah.
part of the country. And he is drawn to her. She has some special talents too. And why does he initially become interested in Ketty?
Well, initially it's just because, wow, she's my age and she's kind of cute. That is really
Yeah.
it. And she's working in her father's inn. He stumbles out of the forest. He's not in very good shape at this point. He's been injured. He's run out of food. He's got bug bites all over him. And he needs a place to rest and he needs a good meal. And he walks in there and it just smells so good. And it reminds him of home because he grew up in a place like that. But she sits down and talks with him, which is unusual for him. That, he's always been kind of the misfit outcast kid. And oh, this cute red-haired girl is willing to sit down and chat with him, and he's just taken with her and
Yeah.
completely smitten.
Yeah. And she she's intrigued by him. I think she might be intrigued by him at first before anything gets even more towards wanting to be with him. So what does she see when she first meets him?
Well, when she first sees him, she thinks he's Ire, and she's not very happy about that. She's angry, but then she realizes, oh no, this is just some young wanderer, and okay, I can give him a meal. I can help him out there.
Yeah.
But she has some magic of her own. And I think that her magic is talking to his magic, and there's something going on subconsciously that they don't know that that's what it is, but that magic is drawn to magic,
Yeah, I kind of picked
even
that up.
before they know.
Yeah, I picked that up when I was reading it, that that the energy was flowing for sure. And
Mhm.
I don't mean attraction energy, I mean the magic energy that you're talking about. Right, right. Um, for me, one of the most interesting characters was that quote, evil wizard Ire. And he turns out to be very different from what I was expecting. Very different, his storyline and the backstory. We can't go fully into his backstory because we don't want to give away the plot. So let's just say that he's a very important part of the story, and it's a surprise. It's very surprising who he is and what he does. And I was curious about his connection to the volcano.
Yeah, so he too is a very powerful wizard, and when he was young, he made a mistake that he felt he could never live down. So he went into hiding, essentially. But he went into hiding very specifically with a community of people that are themselves secretive and hidden that he believed he was descended from. And he had been taught a couple words of their language, enough that he could stumble upon them, introduce himself, and ask for a place where he could go and be useful and do no harm.
Mm,
And well, they had a place for him because their purpose is to keep the dormant volcano dormant.
okay, so there
So
was.
they have somebody living on the flanks of the mountain, listening to it and paying attention. And if it starts to get a little rumbly, they go and they sing to it
Mm,
and calm it and let it let off steam gently rather than explosively.
right.
And they've been successful at this for a long time, but they've been having trouble, or they had been having trouble getting anybody who was willing to go devote their life to that. And so here comes a stranger who seems able to communicate with the mountain. And so they say, okay, if you want to go live in that valley and take care of the mountain, be our guest.
Right.
And that's where
That's
he is.
really intriguing that he would decide to do that. And I mean, at some point, I think he talked about it almost like being his lover because he had to stay there and mollify her anger or mollify her uh, just an interesting connection to the power of the mountain, I think.
Yeah, he's gotten tied up in something that he didn't expect and now can't extricate himself from. But he wants to be left alone.
Yeah,
Perfect place to be left alone.
yes, exactly. Okay, well, we're going to leave it at that because a lot of the story wraps around what happens. We don't want to give you, we want you to read it and find out how all these things play out. Let's go back to Crane, who's told he has talent for sensing hidden things, hence the story of the title of your book. So what are the things that he can sense?
Well, it can be literally like an object that's lost or concealed,
Hmm.
or it can be a person who's lost, a pet or livestock that has wandered off. But also it can be, he can tell if people are keeping secrets.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And as he matures, he learns how to tease those secrets out, which sometimes he is willing to just do, and sometimes he'll like ask permission. Can I read your thoughts? There's
Yeah,
something in your thoughts that maybe you don't even know about.
yeah.
Um, he can he can find a little later after this story, he learns to forage to feed himself and discovers that his sense for hidden things is very helpful. He can find the edible mushrooms. He can find the forgotten cache of nuts. He can find a honey tree. So any of those kinds of things where our animal friends are trying to hide their
Yes.
food, he can find that.
Yeah, well, that brings me to my next point, which I wanted to make, which has to do with him being in the forest and all of the descriptions, because I want people to know that your prose is beautifully lush and very descriptive, and it takes you right into the scene, especially when Crane is in the forest, learning these things and sensing what the trees are called and finding these hidden things that he needs to survive. I was wondering, since you live in the Pacific Northwest, is there a forest or wilderness area that inspired you in your descriptions that you use in the story?
All around me. I think I gathered most of those descriptions at Mount Rainier National Park. And we were up there early when I was writing this. So, 25 years ago, we were up there hiking, and I had a little notebook with me, and I was scribbling things down of, this is what this kind of tree bark looks like, and
Mm,
this is
yeah.
what these flowers smell like, and this is how the cricks come down through the woods and what they look like. And, just trying to really observe the landscape that I wanted to put into the book.
Yes, it comes through. It comes through beautifully. Yeah. Now,
Thank you.
oh, do you want to say something else about that?
Um, no, you made me remember that trip, and it was a long time
Oh,
ago,
good.
but
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think those life experiences and scenes, especially when they're rich, kinetically with things that we can see and feel and touch, I think they stay with us. I think we draw
mhm.
on as authors from all of those adventures in our lives.
Oh yeah, like for instance, when they hike from Erie's cabin up to the place where he can sing to the mountain, that trail is pretty much literally the trail from Sunrise to Frozen Lake at Mount
Yeah.
Rainier, which is not a long trail. I kind of extended it and made it a bit of a longer hike, but it was like, okay, I'm going to put this into the story because
It just,
this is a landscape that is captivating to Crane. It's not some kind of thing he's ever seen before.
yeah.
And it was kind of like that for me the first time. So I thought, okay, this goes in the book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. I really enjoyed it. I love the outdoors and I do a lot of hiking. And so when I'm reading something that has that kind of description, I really, really enjoy it. I also wanted to say that in my review of your book, which you're going to see in a little bit, my short comment about it having touches of cozy. It's also because you're really good at describing the food and the going into the places where people are eating and stuff. It's not certainly not a cozy fantasy, but it has some of those nice touches that are very personal that I really like when I'm reading. I don't like it to be all,
I've actually started describing it as cozy
have
because
you? Okay, well that's
when I first wrote it, cozy fantasy was not yet a subgenre. It didn't exist yet.
okay.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know what to call this thing. over years as I was working on it. It's like, okay, well, it's
Yeah.
a fantasy novel and maybe it's young adult,
Yeah.
but it's kind of has an adventure in it, but it isn't really about that. So what is it exactly? And finally, as we were getting it ready for publication, I said, you know what? It's actually pretty cozy,
Okay. Well, then
but
great.
it has,
I see it.
but it's outdoor cozy. And
Yeah.
this actually came up on Twitter or somewhere. Somebody was saying that they had read something that it struck them as cozy, and other people were saying, well, no, it's not. And he says, it has a lot of hiking in the forest and meals and things. And I'm like, oh, I think that's what I'm writing too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it also has it's not a romancy at all. I mean, it had, but it also has some really wonderful I'm not reconnecting of with old relationships and blossoming of new relationships. So it has all of it. It's got all of it, which makes it
Yeah, it's
rich and full,
the
I think.
romance is sort of
Yeah,
a very much a
a
subplot,
plot. Right.
but it's important.
It is important, and I really enjoyed it, and I don't read a lot of that. I like to have more of the adventure out there, going out there. But it was really nicely balanced with all those components. I wanted to ask you, what was the most difficult part about writing the story? Was there some all of it?
Oh, well, so when I started it, it started from literally a dream that I had.
Mm.
Very short dream, two wizards coming into a room, some stuff happens, bunch of plot twists, and thought, wow, that seems like a scene from a fantasy novel. But it seems like a scene late in a fantasy novel.
How
How do I get here?
did you?
And I
Yeah.
didn't, I had not tried to write a fantasy novel before,
Ah,
and I'd read a lot of them, but I'd never tried to write one. And I really did not know what I was doing. So I think the hardest part was figuring out what the story was and then writing it in a way that was readable to
yeah.
anybody, and then rewriting it countless times because, that first draft was pretty terrible. It was dull and it was dry and it was overwritten in places and thin in others. And I had to take this material where I liked the story, but I didn't like how it read.
Yes.
And so it took, as I say, 25 years of rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and moving stuff around and taking stuff out and putting it back and
Well,
and figuring out what's really important here. Who really are the important characters? And very late in the game, I figured out, oh, you know what the problem is? It's not that it starts in the wrong place. It's that Ketty comes in too late.
yeah,
She is more than just the love interest. She is the co-protagonist, and she needs to come in a lot earlier.
yeah, yeah.
And so I decided, okay, I'm not going to lop off this first part of the story that seems kind of slow. I'm going to add more to it
Yeah.
from a different point of view in another place. And I wasn't sure that would work, but I think it did. So that you see these two young, inexperienced magic users encountering clues and hints about a possible common enemy, and then they meet each other. And that's really where the story takes off. But
Yeah.
it's all been building to that. And it took me a quarter of a century to figure that out. But
Wow.
and
You
and
know,
I had to have written another, 12 or 14 books to figure that out too.
well, just we'll talk about that. Let me share your information, Karen, because I want to have people see the beautiful book cover with the crane with our, a nod to our main character. And I want this is my quote that she's using, and I do want people to understand that I love this book And it really, so far, is my favorite read for this year. Karen, you did such a beautiful job balancing everything and your hard work. Honestly, I think it's so smooth and everything happens exactly as it should at the right time. So I'm giving two thumbs way up on it, and I hope people will go out and get it. And you can catch all her information there, and I will also post it below the video here, so all the links will be there. So first of all, what's next? Is book two in the works?
Book two is in the hands of Not a Pipe Publishing
Oh, okay,
already.
great,
I mean, the whole series is already written, and I'm deep in edits of book three. So
great.
book two is with the publisher, and we're hoping to bring it out in the fall.
Okay.
And that one really is a romantasy and very cozy. I consider it a romantasy interlude. So there will be 3 books about Crane and Ketty,
Yes.
and then inserted between. So book two and book four are these romantasy interludes that go back to Deep River and focus on different characters.
Oh, okay. I think that'll be
And
interesting.
they're, very small, focused, personal relationship stories with a magical frame.
Okay.
So we're hoping to bring book two out in September, and that's called Deep River Rising.
Well, I'm looking
Um,
forward to that. I can't wait to see. I mean, you read something like your book and get into it, and then it's like, okay, you're invested in the characters, and of course that's why people want book two and book three, because they want to see where this all goes.
where does this go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we close out, because we're getting close to our time, I saw a little interesting tidbit in your bio about being in a garage band.
Mhm.
You want to tell us about that?
Okay. Well, back in about 2009, my brother started a band. He works at the Museum of Pop Culture.
Oh,
And so he's
yes.
around a lot of music fans all the time. And he discovered a lot of his coworkers had never been in a band, but kind of wanted to be. So he started this band, and he had this revolving door of people who would come in for a few rehearsals, and then somebody else would come in, some other people would go out. But he couldn't get anybody who really wanted to play a show. They didn't want to play in public.
Yeah, they're too shy. Yeah.
But meanwhile, they'd been borrowing my cymbals and my drums from time to time. And he finally just said, "Hey, you want to be in my band?" And I was like, "Uh-huh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I've been waiting my whole life for this." So we're called Your Mother Should Know.
That's
We're a duo, guitar and drums. We both sing.
oh, nice.
At first, he was writing all the songs, but then I wrote a book about a teenage garage band fronted by a secret superhero, and I ended up writing songs for them, or with them, actually. It was more like very much a collaboration with a fictional character.
Okay.
And so to date, we have come up with, I think, 12 songs, and we've recorded most of them.
Okay. Well,
And
Karen, do you have one or two of those songs up somewhere that you could send me a link where we
yes,
can hear it?
absolutely. Yeah, we have a Bandcamp page. So
Great. I will post that below the video here. So if people want to go check that out. For me, as both a writer and a reader, one of the first things I want to do when I'm meeting a new author is to go find out about not only their literary stuff, but also what they do for fun. So I will post that below, because I think that'll be a neat thing to share with people that are already your fans, or that are interested in some of your upcoming work.
great.
All right. I think that does it for today. What a great conversation. Again, I'm really looking forward to book two. And I love what you did with the story. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with me today.
Thank you for inviting me. This was really fun.
Great, great. And I'll be in touch, and we'll be tracking your future book releases. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.